Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. In this Hearthstone The Witchwood preview video, I'm going to take a look at Witch's Cauldron, which is an interesting neutral epic minion from the new expansion. It's a 3-mana 0/4 with an effect that after a friendly minion dies, add a random Shaman spell to your hand. So in effect, this card is now opening up Shaman spells to all classes, and that's pretty interesting, even though the card hasn't generated a lot of discussion, but the ability to have spells from another class is always potentially quite powerful. So what kind of spells does the card offer? Before the Witchwood expansion we don't have the Shaman spells from the expansion yet. There are overall 26 Shaman spells, so you have a 4% chance to get any individual spell. Because this relies on minions dying to get those spells, so it probably goes in some kind of a token deck, then you would of course be interested in Bloodlust. But the bad news is that you only have 1 in 26 to get Bloodlust for each minion that dies. But you have much better chances to get something like area of effect damage, or direct damage to face, or freeze effects, which also allow your board to keep going face when the opponent's minions cannot respond. Or some attacks to face, or even silence effects, or maybe healing or taunts. So Shaman's spell repertoire is actually quite wide and quite well founded, so you can find answers to most situations from the card, which makes it kind of interesting. It's in some ways comparable to the Lich King cards that you can get, which are more powerful than the regular class spells, but there's also answer to everything, but you're just not guaranteed to get it. Because minions have to die in order for you to get those spells, that limits the search somewhat to various tokenish builds, and I can think of 5 classes that could be interested in Witch's Cauldron. First of all, there is Shaman itself. Well, Shaman has a hero power that summons tokens, that summons minions. Nice. Shaman has access to stuff like Primal Fin Totem, and they use cards like Firefly. Token Shaman has long been a thing, and Witch's Cauldron could act as a card that serves in this deck to generate additional resources. However, there is this one thing in Token Shaman, that you would often rather draw more cards from your own deck than just generate these random cards, and you could do that with something like a Cult Master, which is also a neutral card, so it applies to all classes. Or you could do that with the Manatide Totem. So why run Witch's Cauldron instead of these? That's some stiff competition. Maybe if you try to build some kind of a Murloc deck, Murloc Shaman with the quest, and then you have lots of Murlocs and Murlocs die, and then you get Shaman spells to go alongside with them. You have Megafin to refill minions again. So there are some interesting synergies, but still maybe not enough, and without calling the finishers, which is rotating out of standard, it will be much more difficult to complete the Murloc quest as well. Finally, in Shaman in particular, Witch's Cauldron has to compete with Hagatha, and Hagatha's hero power gives you a Shaman spell whenever you play a minion, so the minion doesn't even have to die. So Witch's Cauldron is a bit in a difficult spot in Shaman, because why play Witch's Cauldron when you can just play Hagatha and get a better version of the effect? But it's still an option that you could use in some Token Shaman builds. Another class that could easily make use of Witch's Cauldron is Paladin. Paladin has tokens for days. Their hero power, again, a hero power that creates tokens. They have stuff like Call to Arms, they have Drygal's Jailer. There's also the option that you might play an Odd Paladin and upgrade your hero power with Baku, and then your hero power summons 2 tokens, and combine this with the ability to create Shaman spells. There are some interesting opportunities there, although I'm not quite sure whether those opportunities are better than what Paladin already naturally has. But there might be something there. Also considering that Paladin is able to buff Witch's Cauldron, so they can make some use of the 0/4 body. It's not necessarily just a body that does nothing on the board. Another class with the ability to use Witch's Cauldron would be Hunt. There's Unleash the Hounds, there's Hunting Mastiff, there's stuff like Snake Trap. Hunter is also able to generate a fair number of tokens. And there's always the Control Hunt the Dream, but I'm afraid it's going to be a fleeting dream. Because Shaman has healing, Shaman has area of effect damage, things that Hunter doesn't naturally have. So if you play Witch's Cauldron, you get a bunch of Shaman spells, You might get some of those things that you need to be a control deck, and yeah, I guess that probably is not going to work. But it would be fun if it did. Next up, there's Warlock. Zulok could use Witch's Cauldron. Warlock can naturally get a lot of cards because of life tap, so even though it doesn't have that many minions that create tokens, I mean, they can use Firefly like everyone else, and they have the Dusk back coming in, but still not a lot of token stuff. But because you can draw so heavily, then you can also use stuff like Witch's Cauldron to generate more resources. I'm just not sure whether Warlock wants to do that. It lacks the means to buff Witch's Cauldron right now, so the body itself is not going to be that useful. And just cycling through the deck rapidly and getting the power from the cards that you have chosen instead of random cards might just be good enough for Warlock. Finally, Witch's Cauldron could see playing aggressive Druid. There's Living Mana, there's Whispering Woods, there's Crypt Lord. So Druid has means to generate tokens, and Druid also has means to protect Witch's Cauldron with something like a Crypt Lord, a very powerful, very imposing taunt minion that prevents the opponent from attacking and killing off the Cauldron, so that you can use it potentially even for multiple turns. So those are the 5 classes that I see could potentially make use of Witch's Cauldron. Whether any of them actually want to do that is much more difficult to estimate. We can calculate the probabilities of getting various sorts of cards, but what does it really feel like when you're playing that? Is the tempo loss from playing a 3-mana 0/4 too big to overcome? Because you have to be playing some kind of token creating deck in order to get this value. And whether you're going to play any token creating decks that can afford the tempo loss, I really don't know. So there's a good chance that Witch's Cauldron is not going to see any play. But still, just that chance of opening up spells from another class, it is so interesting, because that can result in some very, very powerful combinations. So I think this is a card that definitely deserves some closer examination and some experimentation, even though I'm afraid ultimately it's not going to prove to be strong enough. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more.